this week's Everyday Inclusion and Belonging, where we talk about literally everything under the sun, DEI related. I can see us again. I was having a little tech glitch there. I am Mo Berkner-Boyd. I'm the founder of the Moxie Exchange and Everyday Inclusion app. I'm a white woman. I've got red mid-length hair. I threw some purple in it for fun. Wearing red frames, mildly like, I don't know, animal print-ish kind of shirt. I've got my bookshelf with my favorite books and photos behind me. And my pronouns are she, her. I'm super, super excited. So Lindsay and I met a couple of years ago, and I loved LMG from the moment we met through email. She was like funny and brilliant, and like to have that come through in an email I think is really extraordinary. And then met her and I was like, she's even better in real life. And we've been working together now for a bit. And LMG from the start, I've been just so impressed with how you approach this work and you play the long game. And how you build things and have things happen. So I wanted to bring you on so that you could share so many of the best practices that it just seems are in your DNA. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to dig in on this conversation.
I'm so excited. Thank you, Mo. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Millett Glass. I also go by LMG, which happened to be my initials. It's a nickname I picked up a long time ago at a gym. And I am also a white woman with a short blonde faux hawk, which I've been rocking for a while now. It's the only way I get volume in my hair. And I am the director of learning and development here at Stone Ridge Software. And I don't even know how to follow up such kind words, Mo. Like that was so very kind. I was so thrilled to get to meet with you and learn from you and work with you. And it's been just an absolute pleasure to get to lead our DEI and B initiatives here at Stone Ridge to move us along in this space with Everyday Inclusion's help. It's super, super excited.
And, I feel like you've got the good trouble quote from John Lewis behind you. And I feel like that's kind of probably how you've lived your life. So
that's right.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. So been doing this work for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And what has been interesting and gratifying to me, because I've got an L&D, org dev, change management, right, along with the DEI, more and more it's folks like you, right, who are have that L&D expertise, who are really front and center with DEI work. And so I would love your thoughts and just some of the best practices again for how L&D can be a driver of culture change. Because really that's what right? When we're talking about inclusion, we're talking about culture change.
Right.
And so just share a few of the things that you've done, that you've seen that have really worked.
Yeah, it really has always been something I've been very passionate about as an individual. And when we look at trying to gain that cultural shift and those behavior changes, it makes sense that it lives in the realm of learning and development. Yeah. So the way that adults learn, I mean, just basic adult theory, adult learning theory, that we need to respect prior experiences. We want to aim at problem solving centricity. We want to respect everybody as they're coming, and also looking at the way that, for a while, for years, it was so big and new when learning and development teams would say, let's chunk it out. Let's chunk it out.
I remember, that's so funny, because of our micro learning courses are, I think they're like 8 or 9 years old now. And people were like, micro.
Right. Micro learning, macro learning. Do I want to learn this on a micro level? And when we're talking about behavioral change and working on that long term, I love that you said long game, because short term experiences and memories last for hours if we're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
right. If we're lucky. Like, well,
yeah.
what did we discover?
Yeah. What's the like crazy statistic that in 24 hours, what you learned the 24 hours before, you'll remember 50% of it and 10% in a week.
Yeah.
Again, if you're lucky. And so when we look at the trend of chunking things out and making things more digestible, there is a really big change play that we can make when we really look at integrating it into. That's why everyday inclusion has been so helpful, because we can integrate it into even our learning plans so that we can help take those really deep changes that can impact our culture in a positive way and log it into our long-term memory by practicing it often.
Yeah. Yeah. That consistency over time, I think, completion, when it comes to the culture change, completion means nothing. Consistency means everything.
Oh, yes.
And so I think one of the things when I think about just how, and I know that this is not exclusive, which is to your work with everyday inclusion, you have had such a thoughtful approach in terms of you didn't rush in and say, let's just get this started. I saw this thoughtful approach in terms of what's going to work, who do we need to engage first? How are we going to very strategically engage different influencers in the organization? Talk about how you think about that and some of the things that you've seen work, because again, we know how critical getting influencers on board early is. And I would just love to get inside your mind in terms of how you think about that process.
Yeah, I get excited about this work just like anybody else. And we want to, I love that you said about completion is nothing and consistency is everything, because we could certainly jump to the point and nobody would be coming with us. So when I was looking at rolling out this work to our organization at the time of 300-ish people, I have the inner knowledge of the organization, what is going on. So I worked very closely with our organizational change management director, Juliana Hickey, to say what big changes are going on, because this goes right along with change management. Yeah. And having that knowledge, but then looking at, okay, if we're going to look at driving this, we need a group of people that can step into that ambassadorship.
Yep.
And I like to use it's very commonly used, the bell curve of who your early adopters are and then kind of your laggards. I like a good mix right in the middle.
Yeah.
I believe in diversifying everything, including when we're starting these types of programs, because who better to bring along to set the pace for change than those who might question it or absolutely oppose it?
Yes.
Because those are our influencers of influencers. Mm-hmm. And that has been an absolute, if we're getting people talking, we have provoked something. And that's how there's a beautiful book. And of course, I've forgotten the author, but it's titled Turning to One Another. And sometimes adults can lean away from simplistic realities, like how we learn when we're conversing. And when we're bringing in those who may question or oppose larger changes, like approaching a diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging program, we need them to help us identify where the gaps are, where we might get pushbacks, any kind of blind spots that we might have. And I think that shows the rest of the organization, okay, they're really thinking about this from a holistic perspective, because I could throw up a slide deck all day and go through 15 slides and check the box and go to bed at night, but that's not how we're going to impact change.
Well, and I think it's interesting. So I use that bell curve all the time. And right, typically the 20% that are already, right, they're already waving the flags, they're already doing the like in early stage, they're going to come along anyway. I want to talk to you a little bit about the 20% down here.
Okay.
Because I will like I'm all about like let's lean into the 60 and even like the low 60 that are I love a good skeptic. I think that there's some of the right because if you get some of those skeptics, I think that right their voice is really respected, right? Because they're not going to do something just to do something. I have trouble with what somebody once said, cave people, citizens against virtually everything. And particularly right now where the work has been politicized, where even if it was right, we know it's going to benefit, that they're going to oppose simply to oppose because somehow it's gotten woven into their personal politics. I don't know that 20% where in the past I may have been really selective about reaching into that group.
Right.
I don't know that the time is well spent. And I'm just curious if you've made any changes. And I'm not right, because we know, for example, that everyday inclusion calls people in. There's nothing political about it, right? We have everything from neurodiversity to age to you name it in there. I'm just curious if you've changed your approach at all there, and I know that this is pretty off the cuff.
No, I love it. I have been saying something in trainings lately, and talk about provoking. When I say that leaders don't create a culture, the people do. And that provokes people. And I would say that there are those who kind of challenge everything on all ends of the spectrum. And when I've said that, I have witnessed aha moments, and we are a mainly remote virtual workforce, and I can sense those aha moments through the wires. And we create really safe, psychologically safe spaces for us to do this learning together. It's not required learning. So we require it. We require that if you are joining us in this program, that you are entering into the shared belief that we are holding this space safe. And when that happens, people are able to show up authentically, whatever that may look like. And I think that I like to surprise people sometimes. And I think that looking at me and talking to me even for 10 minutes outside of work, some may think, well, I know who this space is really psychologically safe for. And yet, when we lean in with curiosity, it is the simplest thing. And again, adults can lean away from simplicity, but when we start encouraging and showing by example, hey, where's that coming from? Can you tell me more about this? A lot of work we do in the consulting tech space is business analysis. It's digging deeper to find the root of something. And one thing that has been really helpful for that percentage that may lean toward more politicized ideologies when we're talking about human rights and how it can be politicized. When you use their language, their business language, I'm trying to get to the root of this. Here's what I'm hearing. Did I hear that right? Then they're like, oh, here's my own medicine. Wait, I know this language. Okay, I'm on board now. I'm here for it. And it doesn't mean that we all leave every session going, yep, we're all on the same page and we're good. We recognize that people are at different levels in their journey. And that's why it goes back to why learning, change management, DEI and B, like it's all interconnected, because closure doesn't always feel like it's closed. My coach tells me that all the time, Annie Kunsting, and she has always told me that, and it felt icky at first, and now it feels freeing that we can converse and respect one another and work to get on the other side of whatever issue we might be facing, and we can do it while holding the space authentically for one another. I'm not sure if I answered your question directly, but all it's done, honestly, has even encouraged me to take the foot off the gas a little bit more, because I'm witnessing how people are changing and showing up in different ways when we go slow to go fast.
Right. There's the patience, right? Because holding space can be an exercise in patience.
Yes. Yes. When I have felt, I always tell the people who join my sessions, lean into curiosity, lean away from judgment. And I have had others, kind of because I create this safe space, they come to me and say, well, here's why I disagree with this. And in the moment on camera, I have to take a deep breath and remind myself, you're not being judged. Everybody on this call wants to win. So let's win together. And it is, again, it's such a simple perspective. And it saved me personally so much mental health, especially being a part of the LGBTQ community and running this program. It's been really helpful.
Well, and I think that is right. And we have decided that we're going to get our t-shirts printed. The curiosity is an inclusion superpower.
Oh, yes.
Right. That whole, and LMG, I just appreciate, it was such a good reminder for me, because I think that there's also a level of exhaustion right now with everybody doing this work. And you were just a great reminder to me of the power of questions, like what has you believing that, or what has you thinking that, and to slow it down, because even in this environment, we are human to human connecting.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Like it's a very good, and that there is a space here for everybody, because this is really about human kindness, respect, right? How we create this environment where everybody is thriving and everybody wants to be in that kind of environment, right? It just feels literally better for everybody and for everybody's mental health.
Right, exactly.
So is there anything in particular that you have done once you have some of those influencers to really get them involved? Like, do you say, I've got some specific roles I want people to play, right? Like, do you have a blueprint or a playbook that you have used? Or is it different kind of program by program and change by change?
That is a really good question. It's kind of a mix of both. A phrase we like to say at Stone Ridge is, it depends. Because it really depends on the person. It depends on the situation. And everything kind of starts with the best of intentions. But that is, intentions don't always meet impact.
Yeah.
So there has been, right? There's another t-shirt idea. You can have that one. There is a significant amount of roadmap work. So looking at how we're going to deliver this year alone, we're talking about unconscious bias. And it feels like, oh, we could talk about this in a 30-minute meeting and then put it away and that's it. But you learn a little, you practice a little. You learn a little, you practice a little. And many of my sessions are very interactive. I use a lot of different tools to engage folks in. We did a session where they all went into their own groups. I gave them company names of our clients and had them go into their websites as if they were looking for a job and they were a diverse candidate.
Yeah.
and gave them way more time than candidates actually have. And when leaders are asked to do that, especially leaders who might be in those influential groups that are a little bit more questioning or opposing these types of programs, that's when they've now taken on that persona and they dove in themselves to that experience. And those moments are like, oh, okay. So it really is kind of stretching this across this roadmap across the year, and then looking at what we're going to be jumping into next. Each leader and each group gets their own learning plan that consists of the everyday inclusion micro learnings.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to watch on the dashboard side, the additional search terms from everything. I did probably a 7-minute message about belonging at our all company meeting last week. And that belonging and psychological safety have been our two main search terms since then. So it's really, really fun to kind of see that. And I approach the program with a lot of transparency. So we look at the results from our surveys with our ambassador teams, our pilot groups that include a balance of influencers, as well as our leaders and the people in our organization. We have had situations where something bubbles up for someone, and then that results in a one-on-one conversation. And again, when those who may oppose feel heard, they take their seat on the bus of this change in a different way. Like they've chosen the seat, they are not forced into that seat. Does that make sense? I love a good analogy. A good metaphor.
Well, and I think that it's so important to you and like I was nodding my head so vigorously in terms of, we know, particularly with this kind of work, and when you're talking about behavior change and culture change, if it's mandated, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to, well, it'll work with your 20% and maybe some of your 60%, but not many, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, how can I lean into this individually because I want to, because I know it's in it for me? And people typically, when I speak, I'll often talk about this, right? We want people to do this work because it's the right thing to do. Behavior change is hard, right? If I'm going to remember, right, some things around what food I need to order, or what pronouns I'm using, or how I'm going to run this meeting, or how I'm going to make an inclusive, right? All these choices that I have to make, I got to know what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we want people to do this because it's the right thing, and behavior change is hard. And so don't make me do it, and really have me understand how it's good for me, how it's good for my family, how it's good for my team, how it's good for the environment that I show up in every day.
Yes.
Versus I got to see your completion, or you don't get XYZ, or here's this training and you got to show up. And if you don't, there's, we're going to keep hammering at you until you show up so that we can get completion rates. That's just not going to work.
Absolutely. And if you turn people off of learning and being a part of this journey, it impacts all the people that they hold a seat in their circle of influence.
Yeah.
And there's too much risk there. I use my own relationship with my mother-in-law as an example to everyone. I get vulnerable quickly with folks. If I'm going to ask someone to really start cracking at that surface level and really get to the deep things, I'm going to do it myself. And my mother-in-law and my wife and I have been together for 16 years. My mother-in-law and I only started having a really good relationship the last 6 years. And she stood on one side of this canyon and I stood on the other, and we yelled at each other back and forth. And then once I realized, like, what do I want? I want a relationship, a connection with the mother of the woman that I love. I want her to be my family. And I started building this bridge to get to her and learning about her from her voice, she started laying bricks in my direction. And now she is one of my absolute favorite people in my whole life. We have such a good time, and we differ on a lot of things. And if I had forced her hand, like, get over here to me. I mean, I tried for 10 years, Mo, and nothing was thrown with stones. So
Yep.
I use that a lot to explain how we have to, if we want connections with people, if that's what we want, we have to start building the bridge first.
So I'm curious, and it's no accident that I asked you to be on the program during Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, right? More important than ever. Mm-hmm. How does being an out lesbian, or does being an out lesbian, impact how you do this work?
Well, first, it has given me a DEI literacy. I have a lived experience where I can walk into this space and speak from a lived experience of discrimination, of violence, of oppression, and speak to it in a way from my lived experience and speak for, my community. It also increases my empathy for other communities. And funny enough, so that's kind of half the answer. The other half is that I love to surprise people. So again, I can be seen as this is an assumption I'm making. When I recognize I'm making an assumption, I like to say it. And I probably don't seem as approachable to many people who have certain political beliefs, certain religious beliefs, certain beliefs and belief structures. And when I start to connect with them and they feel that connection, that is how it shows up in my work, because I'm helping them break down their barriers of assumption.
Yeah.
I teach a lot about the ladder of inference from Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline, right? And yes, our ladder of inference, how our mind works at moving into beliefs and assumptions, yes, it sits in a pool of data and we're only taking certain data, but I stand in the pool and I offer more data. Hey, here's more information about my community. And when I can make those connections for people, it really has informed the way that I teach far more than I ever expected. And I'm thankful.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's so much around proximity, yes. Right, that you just shared in terms of here's this idea that I have versus here's this living, breathing human being who I'm connecting with, that yes. is exploding some of the assumptions that I've been making. So this conversation, I'm going to go back and listen to, and I just appreciate you so much because I needed to hear a couple of things that you said. That's why, like, this community is so important, right? Us learning and sharing. I would love for you to leave me with one last truth bomb as we are wrapping things up.
I've moved this around in my head a lot, but we don't see the world for how it is. We see it for how we are. And that goes back to our lived experiences and our worldviews and the lens in which we view the world. We're reaffirming our beliefs and conclusions with how we are seeing the world. If we can remove that lens and add more data, whether we agree with it or not, we start to broaden our worldview.
Oh my gosh, right? It's like the mirror we're holding up reflects our reality.
Yes.
And we talked about it a little bit, right? When you're able to step into somebody's reality, and all of us, it's why travel is so incredibly important. People have heard me say how I have a love-hate relationship with social media. and my hate relationship, right, is all the things that it's doing around mental health, around, and that people can get in a bubble and stay in that bubble. What I love about it is I almost I don't I follow very few people that I actually know. I follow communities that are as far different from me in so many different ways because I get it's like a fake proximity.
Oh, I love that.
Right, in terms of some learning, some right. So I might be, and that is such a valuable way to put the mirror down and be able to look out.
Yes.
I mean that in travel, but wouldn't it be great if we could all just
Mhm.
travel all the time?
You're making the technology work for you. I love that. You are informing the algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for who you are in the world. And thank you for sharing your brilliance with the everyday inclusion community. Really appreciate it. Anything that you want to leave us with in terms of, and you're not expecting this question. So Pride this month, this year, it's been a wild ride. Right. And certainly there's been the commercialization of Pride. We've seen that backfiring. We've seen, and we've got an LGBTQ plus community that's under attack, and our most vulnerable, particularly trans kids, are under attack. And I would just, any advice for how you want us to show up as allies right now?
I love that you mentioned that, and no, I wasn't expecting it. And it's so important because we cloak our mental health struggles with a smile and with a project, right? And I would really encourage allies to just check in on people in the LGBT community and a simple happy Pride, how are you doing? And I encouraged people in my company to do that. And last week, when we were all together for our all company meeting, I had people stopping me saying, Happy Pride, how are you doing? Because so often allies will, with the best of intentions, right? Intention doesn't meet impact all the time. The community, members of the community can be approached as in, teach me about your ways, teach me all the things that I need to know to really celebrate Pride and make the most of it. And it's like, we might be a little exhausted right now and we might not be okay. So just ask people, how are you doing?
So I have and I have a question for you about that. And this is one of, I will often share how I screw up in this work because I think it's so important that
yes. Oh my gosh.
Same. And I have a friend who's Black who summer of 2020, she's like, stop asking me how I'm doing because I don't want to have to relive that right now.
Okay.
Ask me, do you need anything? Is there anything I can do to support you? And I wonder, right, there's no one size fits all, obviously. Right. So you asked, right, you saying, really ask me how I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way I can sort of ask both questions in one.
Yeah, because one is check on me and one, or tell me how you're doing so I know how to react, and tell me what I can do for you. And it really depends on the person. It depends. Yeah. Full circle. Because I might be exhausted and I don't want to tell you what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So often I'll tell
Google it.
Right. We're in the age of information. So at this point, I will say often ignorance is a choice right now. And so there's so many ways that we can find an opportunity to take an action. If you're going one-on-one with someone that you work with or someone in your family, and in my perspective, if you're asking, how are you, they will tell you what they need by telling you how they're doing.
Got it. Well, and I think, that's Lindsay, that's why we include the inclusion interviews in the app, right? Because if somebody would, so I would say any of you that your companies use everyday inclusion, right now is a great time. Go in. Certainly, we've got the Pride badge challenge with first. In fact, go in and watch those inclusion interviews right now, and in particular, watch how can people be a good ally, because
Yes.
right, that's loaded in terms of what we can do. And I just think I don't want this moment in time with food, flags, and fun. They're not enough right now, right, for the cis hetero community. Right now, it's allyship, and using privilege in every way that we can. So,
That's right.
That's right. LMG, thank you. I
Thank
know
you.
we went a little bit over, but there were a couple questions.
I'm happy to.
You're the best. Y'all, we will see you here next week for Everyday Inclusion and Belonging. Get out there and do the next right thing. Bye, y'all.